Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to build a raised garden bed made with treated lumber and corrugated metal on Second Son Woodworks. Stay tuned. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button below and the bell icon next to it so that you stay notified when I release new project videos. Alright, let's get started. The first step in this project is to cut down the lumber to the correct length. I'll put a list down in the description below with all the different measurements for this wood that I'm using. You can see here that I'm using a big 4x6 piece of treated redwood for the corners of the box. I recently posted another video of me building two similar raised garden bed boxes for my parents back in Montana. If you haven't watched that video, hit the link in the description below when you're done with this one. Once I had all the lumber cut down to the correct length, I went ahead and laid out the first set of 2x4s for the first wall. Each of these walls is just comprised of 4 separate 2x4s that are butt joined together with pilot holes and construction screws, and then I use or attach the corrugated metal to one side of the frame. After I finished drilling all of the pilot holes into the 2x4s, I went ahead and screwed the first wall together with 2.5-inch construction screws, and then after that I attached the first sheet of corrugated metal. Attaching some of these screws was a pain in the butt. Before attaching the corrugated metal to the frame, I used a hole punch and a hammer to punch out some holes where the construction screws can go through the metal. This makes your life a bit easier. Pro tip, make sure to remove the sticker with the barcode before you put the frame together. Since I will be installing a false bottom about a foot down from the top of this box, I went ahead and measured out the length of the 2x4 that would stretch on the inside of the wall, and this will actually be attached to the outside of the metal. You'll see here in a second how I attach. I guess use some construction screws, and this will serve as a support beam for some shorter 2x4s, and then eventually another sheet of corrugated metal. You'll see later on in the video how I do this, but in the end this essentially saves you from having to fill the whole box up with soil. Once the first wall was done, I went ahead and moved on to doing the second longer wall for the raised garden box. If you don't have an impact drill, I would definitely recommend getting one. They're super handy, especially in situations like this. I'll put a link in the description below for the DeWalt model that I use. Before moving on to building the two smaller walls for the ends of the box, I went ahead and cut down the sheet of metal that will be used for one of the side walls. I actually had a spare piece of metal. You can see there the one that I just leaned up against the fence from the previous boxes that I built. So I use that to measure out the length of this one, and then I use my metal cutter snippers to cut the metal down. You could use a grinder as well if that is easier. Once the metal was cut down for these two smaller walls, I went ahead and began to screw the 2x4s together that will comprise the two walls. Once the walls were built with the 2x4s, I went ahead and attached the corrugated metal to one face of each of these walls, and like I did before, I used a hole punch with my hammer to hammer out some holes for the screws to go through. This makes your life a whole lot easier. And then after that, I used some screws to attach the corrugated metal to the frame of these two walls, and I don't need to attach any sort of support beam on the side ones like I did on the longer walls. Once the four walls were fully constructed, I moved everything over to the spot in my garden where I will be placing the actual box, and you can see here that I have the four beams that are made out of those 4x6s, and I essentially screw the walls to these beams to create the box. I utilize some of the pocket holes that I screwed earlier on in the video on the side rails to attach the walls to the corner post beams, and a few of them were a little bit difficult to screw into, so I ended up drilling some pocket holes, and then after that I will build the false bottom. The nice thing about this design is that if I were to ever move from this location, I could just take the whole thing apart and move it in different pieces. From there, I went ahead and moved on to constructing the false bottom of the garden box. You can see here that I laid out several 2x4s to test the corrugated metal, placing the corrugated metal onto these 2x4s. I ended up actually placing 6 of these 2x4s as support beams for the corrugated metal. Then I screwed them into the 2x4s that are on the long walls, and then I attached the corrugated metal to these 2x4s. Once the box was complete with the false bottom, it was time to fill it up with soil. It's been several years since I grew my own garden. I'm really excited to do this here in Santa Barbara. We're going to be growing some basil and oregano, tomatoes, squash, some peppers, and a few bits of different types of cabbage and lettuce. If you have any great tips for gardening, you should throw them up in the comment section below. Alright guys, I want to hear what you think about this garden box. Throw up some comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you think. Here are some of the plants that I will be planting in the garden box. Alright folks, thank you for tuning into another episode of Second Son Woodworks. Like I said in the beginning, my name is Caleb. I hope that you enjoyed this video and found this to be useful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Give me any tips or tricks you may have for gardening. And if you haven't, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it so that you stay notified when I release new project videos. And like I always say, build something cool. Take care.